you're not reading from the King James or the King James on the board, is that what that is? Yeah, wall. Let me know which version you're reading from, just so we can sort of bridge the differences. So, with that in mind, so I'm going to start reading.
Now, when Jesus was in Bethany, in the house of Simon the leper, there came unto him a woman having an alabaster box of very precious ointment, and poured it on his head, and he sat at meat. But when his disciples saw it, they had indignation, saying, to what purpose is this waste? For this ointment might have been sold for much, and given to the poor. When Jesus understood it, he said unto them, why trouble ye the woman? For she hath wrought a good work upon me. For ye have the poor always with you, but me ye have not always. For in that she had poured his ointment on my body, she did it for my burial. Verily I say unto you, whosoever this gospel shall be preached in the whole world, there shall also that this woman had done be told for a memorial of her.
Okay, before we go on, hang on a second so I can figure it out. Looks like I might have picked up the wrong sheaf of papers today, but it's okay, I have another one. Yeah. Okay. All right, so then somebody read the Mark 14, 3-9 passage.
And being in Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, as he sat at meat, there came a woman having an alabaster box of ointment of spikenard.
Spikenard.
Yeah. Very precious. And she brake the box and poured it on his head. And there was some that had indignation within themselves and said, why was this waste or made? For it might have been sold for more than 300 pence, and had been given to the poor. And they murmured against her. Jesus said, let her alone. Why trouble you her? She has wrought a good work on me. For you have the poor with you always, and whenever you will, you may do good to them. But me, you have not always. She has done what she could. She is come beforehand to anoint my body for the burying. Verily I say unto you, whosoever this gospel shall be preached throughout the whole world, this also she had done shall be spoken of for a memorial of her.
Okay. Thank you, Abel. And the John passage 12, 1-11.
Then Jesus, 6 days before the Passover, came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, which had been dead, whom he raised from the dead. There they made him a supper, and Martha served, but Lazarus was one of them that sat at the table with them. Then took Mary a pound of ointment of spikenard, very costly, and anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair, and the house was filled with the odor of the ointment. Then said one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, which should betray him, why was not this ointment sold for 300 pence and given to the poor? This he said, not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief and had a bag and bare what was put therein. Then said Jesus, let her alone. Against the day of my burying hath she kept this. For the poor always ye have with you, but me ye have not always. Which people of the Jews therefore knew that he was there, and they came not for Jesus' sake only, but that they might see Lazarus also, whom he had raised from the dead. But the chief priests consulted that they might put Lazarus also to death, because that by reason of him many of the Jews went away and believed in Jesus.
Okay. A little bit of a lesson here, both for the receiving of ministry and the providing of ministry. We can receive money from people for ministry. We can provide money out to people for ministry, and if we do it on an individual basis, certainly there's going to be a lot of money going back and forth. And many of us can't afford to give out as much money as we would like to give to solve every person on earth's issues, and we can't do that. Remember that as you participate in your ministries, either as a recipient or as a giver. Throwing money at situations does not always resolve the situation. And it doesn't mean you can't serve an immediate need. When a homeless person with whom I'm ministering gets the daylights beat out of them and they get everything stolen, which is many of you know that's probably a commonplace thing within the homeless arena. It's one of the most predatory environments on the face of the earth, frankly. If you're able to and you're willing to provide a few bucks, okay. Stay away from the enabling thing, where you're constantly, I don't need to rent a son or a rent a daughter. I already have 2 sons and a daughter that can take care of my money for me. But remember that, and the bigger picture is you spread yourself too thin. If you're constantly thinking that a few bucks here, a few bucks there, first of all, you won't have those few bucks yourself, and you might need them. Second of all, it's not really going to be any kind of a permanent fix for the person that receives that ministry. But we do try to channel them into things. You guys are blessed because you have something called the C Street Family Plan available to you. And I know there are moments in your life perhaps when you may not agree with that word blessed, but that's the reality. You have a roof. You have food or resemblance thereof available to you. I can't believe I say these things on camera sometimes, but anyway. So just remember that in your ministries. And then the second point I want to make is I didn't become a Christian, and I think all of you know this, until sometime after I got to Oxnard. In fact, in 1994. But after I'd read the Bible a couple of times and I saw this word spikenard, I thought, nard is the operative word there. There's a number of substances that have nard as the second part of the word, and they usually have to do with aroma. And so I thought, well, I guess that's what Oxnard is all about. The aroma, the nard aroma of ox. And doesn't it sometimes feel like that when you get up and you walk out your door?
Oh, yeah.
I live over in Lemonwood. Many of you know that.
Oh, just the house.
It depends on what they put on the fields that particular day. And now nard itself is usually an aromatic kind of a thing. It's usually, that. But anyway, so I figured I came to Oxnard to get my particular personal alabaster box and anointing. All right. Enough of making levity with the Bible, but where are we now? 121?
Yes.
Okay, the triumphant entry of the King, and this time we have 4 gospel writers that wrote of this. And so if somebody would go ahead and take the Matthew passage 21, verses 1 through 11.
And when they drew nigh unto Jerusalem and were come to Bethphage,
Yes.
unto the Mount of Olives, they sent Jesus 2 disciples, saying unto them, Go into the village over against you, and straightway ye shall find an ass tied, and a colt with her. Loose them and bring them unto me. And if any man say aught unto you, ye shall say, The Lord hath need of them, and straightway he will send them. All this was done, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophet, saying, Tell ye the daughter of Sion, right? Sion?
Yeah. Yes.
Sion, behold, the king cometh unto thee, meek and sitting upon an ass, and a colt, the foal of an ass. And the disciples
Full. I'm sorry, full.
The foal of an ass. And the disciples went and did as Jesus commanded them, and brought the ass and the colt, and put on them their clothes, and they set him thereon. And a very great multitude spread their garments in the way. Others cut down branches from the trees and strawed them in the way. And the multitudes that went before and that followed cried, saying, Hosanna, the Son of David, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. And when he was come into Jerusalem, all the city was moved, saying, Who is this? And the multitude said, This is Jesus, the prophet of Nazareth of Galilee.
Okay, Mark 11, 1 through 11.
And when they came nigh to Jerusalem, unto Bethphage and Bethany, at the Mount of Olives, he sent forth 2 of his disciples. He said unto them, Go your way into the village over against you. And as soon as ye be entered into it, ye shall find a colt tied, whereon never man sat. Loose him and bring him. And if many say unto you, Why do this? Say ye that the Lord hath need of him. And straightway he will send him hither. And they went their way and found the colt tied by the door without in a place where 2 ways met. And they loosed him. And certain of them that stood there said unto them, What do ye losing the colt? And they said unto them, Even as Jesus had commanded. And they let them go. And they brought the colt to Jesus, and cast their garments on him, and he sat upon him. And many spread their garments in the way, and others cut down branches off the trees, and strawed him in the way. And they went before, and they that followed cried, saying, Hosanna, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. Blessed be the kingdom of our father David, that cometh in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. And Jesus entered into Jerusalem, and into the temple. And we had looked around about on all things, and now the eventide had come. He went out into Bethany with the 12.
Okay, that was actually eventide, which is another way of saying evening. Rather than event, it's eventide. Sometimes you can't, with the consonants, you don't know where to divide them. So, someone read the Luke 19, 29 through 44.
And it came to pass, when he was come nigh Bethphage and Bethany, at the mount called the Mount of Olives, he sent 2 of his disciples, saying, Go ye into the village over against you, in the which at their entering ye shall find a colt tied, whereon yet never man sat. Loose him and bring him hither. And if any man ask you, Why do you loose him? Thus shall you say unto him, Because the Lord hath need of him. And they that were sent went their way, and found even as he had said unto them. And as they were loosing the colt, the owners thereof said unto them, Why lose ye the colt? And they said, The Lord hath need of him. And they brought him to Jesus, and they cast their garments upon the colt, and they set Jesus thereon. And as he went, they spread their clothes in the way. And when he was come nigh, even now at the descent of the Mount of Olives, the whole multitude of the disciples began to rejoice and praise God with a loud voice for all the mighty works that they had seen, saying, Blessed be the King that cometh in the name of the Lord. Peace in heaven and glory in the highest. And come to the Pharisees from among the multitude, said unto him, Master, rebuke thy disciples. And he answered and said unto them, I tell you that if these should hold their peace, the stones would immediately cry out. And when he was come near, he beheld the city and wept over it, saying, If thou hast known, even thou, at least in this thy day, the things which belong unto thy peace, but now they are hid from thy eyes. For the days shall come upon thee that thine enemies shall cast a trench about thee and compass thee round, and keep thee on every side, and shall lay thee even with the ground, and thy children within thee. And they shall not leave in thee one stone upon another, because thou knewest not the time of thy visitation.
Okay, and John 12, verses 12 through 19.
On the next day, most people that were come to the feast, when they heard that Jesus was coming to Jerusalem, took branches of palm trees and went forth to meet him, and cried, Hosanna! Blessed is the King of Israel that cometh in the name of the Lord. And Jesus, when he had found a young ass, sat thereon, as it is written, Fear not, daughter of
Sion.
Behold, thy king cometh, sitting on an ass's colt. These things understood not his disciples at the first. But when Jesus was glorified, then remembered they that these things were written of him, and that they had done these things unto him. The people therefore that was with him when he called Lazarus out of his grave, and raised him from the dead, bear record. For this cause the people also met him, for they that heard that he had done this miracle. The Pharisees therefore said among themselves, Perceive ye how ye prevail nothing? Behold, the world is gone after him.
Okay. Every time I read those particular passages, I think about how difficult it must have been for the asses, the donkeys, to walk among all those branches. But I guess they're sure-footed, more so than I. Bible trivia, kind of sort of personalizes it a little bit if you kind of think of that too. Okay, number 122 there, the cursing of the fig tree. And that one was, those two passages were something that gave me quite a bit of trouble as a Bible reader, but a non-Christian. I didn't have the teaching and everything else that went along with that. So if you'll listen to somebody read Matthew 21:18 and 19.
On the morning as he returned to the city, he hungered, and when he saw a fig tree in the way, he came to it and found nothing thereon, but leaves only, and said unto it, Let no fruit, grow in thee hand forward forever. And presently the fig tree withered away.
Okay, in the parallel passage, Mark 11:12 through 14.
And the morrow, when they were come from Bethany, he was hungry, and had seen a fig tree afar, all having leaves. He came, if haply he might find anything thereon, and when he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for the time of figs was not yet. And Jesus answered and said unto it, No man eat fruit of thee hereafter forever. And his disciples heard it.
And that was a bit of an allusion, Allusion, to the Pharisees and actually the Jewish people in general, but the Pharisees specifically. Somewhere along the line, they should have gotten the impression that Jesus was who he said he was, that it was foretold that he was going to be there at that particular time. Yes, Martin?
Can you explain, in a nutshell, what a fig tree is and what's the symbolization behind it?
I can only probably do half of that. It's a tree that bears figs. And I'm not being a smart aleck. I'm not being a smart aleck, incidentally, but you ever heard of fig Newtons, or you ever seen fig as a fruit?
Right.
It is considered to be a fruit. It's not a fruit that I particularly, hang on. I was asked a question. I'm going to try to answer the question, and then I'll let you guys continue to work on the can of worms if that's what we're going to do. So anyway, it's and what was the second part? The symbolism of it?
Yes.
The symbolism is that people who would have grown in Jesus, people who would have realized that he was the Savior, would have realized that he was there to offer them fruit. And the fruit that he was offering was their own salvation, if they would partake of it. But if they didn't choose to partake of it, then of course they're going to wither. They're going to go to a different place upon their cessation of life on earth and those kinds of things. Now, whether that's a textbook or a Dr. Welch answer, I don't know, but I now invite anybody else who would raise their hand if they'd care to. Oh, wait a minute. We're still answering your question.
Okay.
Hang on. I'll let you have a redirect, Martin.
Okay. To my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but the fig tree is a symbol of Israel.
I won't dispute that at all. I won't dispute that at all. As a nation, yes, but as a nation, it still deals with two different portions of that nation, the believers and the non-believers. So yeah, I'm okay with that. I wouldn't dispute that. So
It's the curse of Israel. What the title of this is another symbol. The fig tree was the symbolization of Israel.
Okay, I accept that. So you got that. So good for you. So that's that's it. Anybody else want to comment about that? Alex?
But I just had a question. Wasn't the fig like Jesus' favorite fruit to eat?
I'm not going to go there with you.
I heard something like that.
Yeah, no, I'm not ever going to go there with you. It's like saying who's the favorite of God? All of us. So no, I won't go there with you. I don't think in my limited experience, I have no information about that being Jesus' favorite fruit or anything of that nature.
Keep you warm.
I think my mom just told me that just to say she always had fig trees.
Yeah, well, I was told a few things by my mom when I was young too. Back there in the corner. You say again, please.
Keeps you warm.
Does it? I don't eat figs, so I don't know. And I haven't eaten fig Newtons even in a long time. Okay. But again, as we receive information, as we partake of knowledge, whether it's accurate knowledge or inaccurate knowledge, we don't need to belabor the fine points necessarily, unless the fine points are really way off base. But we could conjecture, but what we're conjecturing about is a past event at which we were not alive and at which we did not have CNN and NBC and all the others to report on those events, thank God, frankly. But to the extent that they apply to our life, that's what we're supposed to do. So are we going to be the fig that was cursed, the fig tree that was cursed? A little too late for us if we've already accepted Jesus. We can't go back. That's right.
I was just gonna say, you answered my question, but I've heard so many times, so many different preachings on that where it's taken out of context, spiritualized.
And that is the whole point of the harmony of the Gospels, and that's why we're reading it from it more than expounding upon it, because I want you to hear and speak and get this into your heart a little bit more, because everything about interpreting from a language, whether it be Hebrew or whether it be Koine Greek, is you have a threefold navigational fix. You have to know what the word meant at the time that it was used. You have to know the context in which it was used. And then you also have to know if there's any place else in Scripture that deals with that subject, do they agree? Get all three of those, then you have harmony of the Gospels. And if you take, and I know that I've said this before, but it's been a while, if you take an individual passage and you hang your entire ministry upon that particular passage, you might as well change your name to Jim Jones, move to the Guyana, and let 937 people be murdered on your behalf. A little dramatic way of looking at that. And many of you might have heard that I was stationed at Dover when those bodies came in from Guyana. And it's a pretty horrific event. But that was a man who professed, whether he believed or not, he professed a belief in some doctrine. I don't even know what his doctrine was. I don't know how anybody could go to something called the People's Temple in a place called Guyana. And not everybody drank the Kool-Aid. I know a lot of people think that the infants that it was poured down their throats and all that, and many of the people were murdered, flat out murdered, shot, killed, strangled, whatever. Shot, killed, strangled. Okay, mixing my metaphors up there. But while many of them drank it voluntarily, the ones that didn't drink it voluntarily were simply executed and left their rotting bodies and in that plane, and that congressman got killed there, and everything else. It's but that was somebody with a doctrine. You know, the Heaven's Gate folks, the Waco Wackos, and you know, all the different folks. David Koresh. You know, be careful who you follow. Pay more attention to what you follow, and that be the Lord, be the only one that you follow. And so, yeah, it's taking stuff out of context. You know, it's that thing about the money is the root of evil. Well, no, it's out of context. It's the love of, exactly. It makes a whole lot of difference. You know, so yeah, thank you for raising the issue of the context. That's crucial. It's crucial to any of us, and for those of you who are relatively new to this Christian shtick, that's what it's about. All right, moving on to 123 there, the second cleansing of the temple. 3 of the Gospels talk about that. So Matthew 21, 12 through 17. Somebody?
And Jesus went into the temple of God and cast out all of them that sold and bought into the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers and the seats of them that sold doves, and said unto them, It is written, My house shall be called the house of prayer, but ye have made it a den of thieves. And the blind and the lame came into the temple, and he healed them. And when the chief priests and scribes saw that the wonderful things that he did, and the children crying into the temple, and saying, Hosanna to the Son of David, they were sore displeased, and said unto him, Hearest thou what these say? And Jesus said unto them, Yea, have you never read, Out of the mouth of babes and sucklings thou hast perfect praise? And he left them and went out of the city into Bethany, and he lodged there.
Okay, hold on a minute. Read what were the numbers of the last 2 passages you read?
It was 21, 12 through 17.
Okay, stop to 17?
Yeah.
Hold on, let me look at this because that's a little...
Yeah, after 15.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, all right. Now I see what I did. I printed out a little bit too much. Okay. And then the Mark 11, 15 through 19 passage.
And they come to Jerusalem, and Jesus went into the temple, and began to cast out them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers, and the seats of them that sold doves, and would not suffer that any man should carry any vessel through the temple. And he taught, saying unto them, Is it not written, My house shall be called of all nations the house of prayer? But ye have made it a den of thieves. And the scribes and chief priests heard it, and sought how they might destroy him, for they feared him, because all the people were astonished at his doctrine. And when even was come, he went out of the city.
Okay, and then Luke 19, 45 through 48. Am I back on track? Yeah, okay.
1945 through 48. 45 through 48 is NASB.
Thank you.
Jesus entered the temple and began to drive out those who were selling, saying to them, It is written, and my house shall be a house of prayer. But you have made it a robber's den. And he was teaching daily in the temple. But the chief priests and the scribes and the leading men among the people were trying to destroy him. And they could not find anything that they might do, for all the people were hanging on to every word he said.
Hey, could you do something about the dog? Give me the ball, someone. No, Ashley, come on, man. We don't want her barking while we're reading and stuff.
You guys say give the ball. If somebody's got the ball, please give her the ball, because it's going to distract. You're not going to tie her up. You guys, please. You got a ball? You got a ball? I know, but she's staying with you. She's
staying here because it seems that this is the shoe that he's wearing.
What? What shoe?
She's asking for a ball. There it is.
No, but you have one on.
No, I have a shirt. I have a shirt. Button shirt.
Okay, the dead fig tree observed. Matthew 21, verses 20 through 22.
And when the disciples saw it, they marveled, saying, How soon is the fig tree withered away? Jesus answered and said unto them, Verily I say unto you, if you have faith and doubt not, you shall not only do this which is done to the fig tree, but also if you shall say unto the mountain, Be thou removed, and be cast into the sea, it shall be done. And all things whatsoever you ask in prayer, believing, you shall receive.
Okay, and then the Mark 11, 20 through 26 passage.
And in the morning, as they passed by, they saw a fig tree dried up from the roots. And Peter, calling to remembrance, saith unto him, Master, behold, the fig tree which thou curest is withered away.
Cursed
is withered away. And Jesus answering saith unto them, Have faith in God. For verily I say unto you, that whosoever shall say unto this mountain, Be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart, but shall believe that those things which he saith shall come to pass, he shall have whatsoever he saith. Therefore I say unto you, what things soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them. And when ye stand praying, forgive, if ye have aught against any, that your Father also which is in heaven may forgive you your trespasses. But if ye do not forgive, neither will your Father which is in heaven forgive your trespasses.
Okay. Then 125, Jesus' authority questioned. Looks like 3 passages there. So Matthew 21, 23 through 27.
Okay. And when he was coming to the temple, the chief priests and the elders of the people came unto him as he was teaching, and said, By what authority doest thou these things? And who gave thee this authority? And Jesus answered and said unto them, I also will ask you one thing. If ye tell me, I and likewise will tell you by what authority I do these things. The baptism of John, whence was it? From heaven or of men? And they reasoned with themselves, saying, If we shall say from heaven, he will say unto us, Why did ye not believe him? But if we shall say of men, we fear the people, for all hold John as a prophet. And they answered Jesus and said, We cannot tell. And he said unto them, Neither tell I you by what authority I do these things.
All right, and the Mark 11, 27 through 33 passage.
They came again to Jerusalem, and as he was walking in the temple, there come to him the chief priests and the scribes and the elders, and say unto him, By what authority doest thou these things?
Doest thou?
Doest thou
Yes.
these things? And who gave thee this authority to do these things? And Jesus answered and said unto them, I will also ask of you one question, and answer me, and I will tell you by what authority I do these things. The baptism of John, was it from heaven or of men? Answer me. And they reasoned with themselves, saying, If we shall say, from heaven, he will say, Why then did ye not believe him? But if we shall say, of men, they feared the people, for all men counted John, and he was a prophet indeed. And they answered and said unto Jesus, We cannot tell. And Jesus answering saith unto them, Neither do I tell you by what authority I do these things.
And Luke 20, verses 1 through 8.
NASB, Luke 20, 1 through 8. On one of the days while he was teaching people in the temple and preaching the gospel, the chief priests and the scribes with the elders confronted him, and they spoke, saying to him, Tell us by what authority you are doing these things, or who is the one who gave you this authority? Jesus answered and said to them, I will also ask you a question, and you tell me. Was the baptism of John from heaven or from men? They reasoned among themselves, saying, if we say from heaven, he will say, why do you not believe him? But if we say from men, all the people will stone us to death, for they are convinced that John was a prophet. So they answered that they did not know where it came from. And Jesus said to them, nor will I tell you by what authority I do these things.
Okay. All right, messages to the opposition. There's a lot of that going on, but anyway, Matthew 21, verse 28, all the way up through 22:14. So that's a pretty long passage, pretty long group of passages. Maybe somebody go to the end of 21, but then somebody else start with the 22.
Okay, I'll go to the end of 21.
Okay.
But what think ye? A certain man had 2 sons, and he came to the first and said, Son, go work today in my vineyard. He answered and said, I will not. But afterward he repented and went. And he came to the second and said likewise. And he answered and said, I go, sir, and went not. Whether of them twain did the will of his father? They said unto him, the first. Jesus said unto them, verily I say unto you, that the publicans and the harlots go into the kingdom of God before you. For John came unto you in the way of righteousness, and ye believed him not. But the publicans and the harlots believed him. And ye, when ye had seen it, repented not afterward, that ye might believe him. Hear another parable. There was a certain householder which planted a vineyard, and hedged it around about, and digged a wine press in it, and built a tower, and let it out of the husband. Let it out to the husband, and went into a far country. And when the time of the fruit drew near, he sent his servants to the husband, that they might receive the fruits of it. And the husband took his servants, and beat one, and killed another, and stoned another. Again, he sent other servants more than the first, and they did unto them likewise. But the last of all he sent unto them his son, saying, they will reverence my son. But when the husband saw...
Let me hesitate there for a moment. Yeah, it's husbandmen. It means a group of farmers, basically.
Okay. But when the husbandmen saw the son, they said among themselves, there is the hire.
This is the heir.
The heir. This is the heir. Come, let us kill him, and let us seize on his inheritance. And they caught him, and cast him out of the vineyard, and slew him. When the Lord therefore of the vineyard cometh, what will he do unto those husbandmen? They say unto him, he will miserably destroy those wicked men, and will let out his vineyard unto other husbandmen, which shall render him the fruits of their seasons. Jesus said unto them, did ye never read in the scriptures, the stone which the builders rejected, the same is become the head of the corner. This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. Therefore I say unto you, the kingdom of God shall be taken from you, and given to a nation bringing forth the fruits thereof. And so whosoever shall fall on this stone shall be broken. But on whomsoever it shall fall, it will grind him to powder. And when the chief priests and the Pharisees had heard his parables, they perceived that he spake of them. But when they sought to lay hands on him, they feared the multitude, because they took him for a prophet.
Okay, now somebody else pick up on 22:1.
And Jesus answered and spake unto them again by parables, and said, The kingdom of heaven is like unto a certain king, which made a marriage for his son, and sent forth his servants to call them that were,
Bidden.
Yeah, that were bidden to the wedding, and they could not come. Again, he sent forth other servants, saying, Tell them which are bidden, Behold, I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and my fatlings are killed, and all things are ready. Come unto the marriage. But they made light of it and went their ways, one to his farm, another to his merchandise. And the remnant took his servants and treated them spitefully and slew them. But when the king heard thereof, he was wroth. And he sent forth his armies and destroyed those murderers and burned up their city. Then said he to his servants, The wedding is ready, but they which were bidden were not worthy. Go ye therefore into the highways, and as many as ye shall find, bid to the marriage. So those servants went out into the highways and gathered together all as many as they found, both bad and good. And the wedding was furnished with guests. And when the king came in to see the guests, he saw there a man which had not on a wedding garment. And he said unto him, Friend, how camest thou in hither, not having a wedding garment? And he was speechless. Then said the king to the servants, Bind him hand and foot, and take him away, and cast him into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of the teeth, for many are called, but few are chosen.
Okay, and parallel passage Mark 12:1-12.
And he began to speak unto them by parables. A certain man planted a vineyard, and set a hedge about it, and gave a place for the wine fat, and built a tower, and let it our husbandman, and went into a far country. And season he said to the husbandman serving, that he might receive from the husband of the fruit of the vineyard. And they caught him and beat him, and sent him away empty. And again he sent out to another servant, and him they cast stones and wounded him in the head, and sent him away shamefully, handled. And again he sent another, and him they killed, and they many others, beaten some and killed some. Having yet therefore one son, his well beloved, he sent him also. Last unto them, saying, They will revere my son. But those husbandmen said among themselves, Ye are the year, come let us kill him. The inheritance shall be ours. And they took him and they killed him, and cast him out of the vineyard. What shall therefore the Lord of the vineyard do? He will come and destroy the husbandman, and he will give the vineyard unto the others. And have ye not read the scripture, the stone which the builder rejected to become the head of the corner? This was the Lord doing, and it was marvelous in our eyes. And they sought to lay hold on him, but feared the people, for they knew that they had spoken the parables against them, and they left him and went their way.
And the third parallel passage, Luke 20, verses 9-19.
Then began he to speak to the people this parable. A certain man planted a vineyard and let it forth to husbandmen, and went into a far country for a long time. And at the season he sent a servant to the husbandmen that they should give him the fruit of the vineyard. But the husbandmen beat him and sent him away empty. And again he sent another servant, and they beat him also, and entered him shamefully and sent him away empty.
And treated him
Shamefully and sent him away empty. And again he sent a third, and they wounded him also and casted him out. Then said the Lord of the vineyard, What shall I do? I will send my beloved son. It may be they will reverence him when they see him. But when the husbandmen saw him, they reasoned among themselves, saying, This is the heir, come let us kill him, that the inheritance may be ours. So they cast him out of the vineyard and killed him. What therefore shall the Lord of the vineyard do unto them? He shall come and destroy these husbandmen, and shall give them the vineyard to others. And when they heard it, they said, God forbid. And he beheld them, and said, What is this? And there is written, The stone which the builders rejected, the same is become the head of the corner. Whosoever shall fall upon that stone shall be broken, but on whomsoever it shall fall, it will grind him to powder. And the chief priests and the scribes the same hour sought to lay hands on him, and they feared the people, for they perceived that he had spoken this parable against them.
Okay. All right, I think it's probably a good place to take a break. And if you could be back here at 11:05, that would be good. Sound good?